Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Vanessa Mercado Taylor here, professor for Introduction to Cinema. Today we will be learning about the mise-en-scene. So what is the mise-en-scene? Mise-en-scene is the sum of everything the audience sees, hears, and experiences while viewing the film. Because of the complexity of sound, many scholars sometimes see it as separate from mise-en-scene. For this reason, we will study it in more depth at a separate lesson, although we will touch on it in this lesson. Mise-en-scene influences our mood as we watch and helps to communicate the story and message. The two major visual components of the mise-en-scene are design and composition. It is the overall look and feel of the movie. In Memento, the use of black and white, the bar setting, and the lighting all contribute to the film noir look, giving it a mysterious feel and encouraging the audience to experience the detective story in a new way. So mise-en-scene is design and composition. First, we will learn about design, also referred to as production design. Design is the process by which the director and designer decide on the look of the film. It includes set, design, decor, prop selection, lighting setup, costuming, makeup, and hairstyle, which all play a role in shaping the overall design. The design for the cell make its mise-en-scene incredibly important. The combination of costumes, setting, lighting, and props give us a lot of information about the story. We are in a nightmare. The characters are incredibly powerful. The essence of the characters changes throughout the film. The film deals with the theme of power, and there are many locations. The design of the cell gives us information, but it also sets a mood. The design creates the feeling of a nightmare. You may feel scared, untrusting of the characters, disturbed, unsettled, unsure. A design should help express a movie's vision. It does this by creating a convincing sense of times, spaces, and moods. It suggests a character's state of mind. It relates to the themes, and it is appropriate to the narrative. So if the narrative strives to be realistic, then its look should have that quality too. If a movie is fantastic, then its design should mirror and complement the fantasy. The elements of design are setting, decor, and properties, lighting, and costume, makeup, and hairstyle. This is what you're looking for in the film in order to analyze mise-en-scene. Let's look at each of these individually. Setting is the spatial and temporal setting, or the time and place of a film. It is the environment in which the narrative takes place. It can be realistic or imagined. In addition to its physical significance, the setting creates a mood that has social, psychological, emotional, economic, and cultural significance. The juxtaposition of the two different locations of the film in time not only tells us where the character is in a certain scene, but also the differences between the upper and lower classes in this society, which communicates the message of the film and make a comment on our society. Decor and props is the color and texture of the interior decoration, furniture, draperies, curtains, and properties or props. Props are objects such as paintings, vases, flowers, guns, cars, personal belongings, etc. They help us understand the characters by showing us their preferences for or ability to purchase such things. The design of the props can create a mood, tell us something about the story, or help to define the setting. How to analyze setting, decor, and props. When describing the setting, try to separate your objective observations from your interpretations. That is, don't say a nice house or cheap jewelry or rotten weather. Instead, focus just on what you see in detail, mentioning size, colors, lines. You must paint a very accurate picture of what you see. You must describe it as if the person has never seen it before and must know exactly what it looked like. Think about the narrative, themes, and mood of the film, and ask yourself why the director chose this particular setting, decor, and props. Analyze what the director achieved through the setting, decor, and props, and what was communicated to the audience. Ask yourself why. Why did the filmmaker make the choices that they did in regards to the setting, decor, and props? And how does that affect the film as a whole, the narrative, and the audience's viewing of the film? Next, we will discuss lighting, another element of the mise-en-scène. Light is not only fundamental to the recording of images, they can't film in the dark, but also has many important functions in shaping the way the final product looks, guiding our eyes through the moving images, and helping to tell the movie's story. It is an important element in drawing the composition of a frame and realizing that arrangement on film. Remember these pictures? Look at how the lighting draws attention to the character in the center. In the picture on the left, it reinforces movement and creates a line from the purple cloth wings to the woman on the ground. Through highlights, light calls attention to shapes and textures. Look at how lighting calls attention to the shapes and textures of the actors' faces and hairs in this image. Through shadows, it may mask or conceal things. The lighting here hides the faces and expressions of the actors, focusing only on their silhouettes. In both of these, it is also setting a mood. There is no such thing as natural lighting in a movie. Even for scenes that seem to have natural lighting because they take place outside, careful manipulation of the lights actually achieves this natural look. Lighting plays a crucial role in setting mood for a moment on film. The costumes, makeup, and hairstyle contribute greatly to an actor's ability to change his or her appearance and play many different types of roles. We refer to costume, makeup, and hairstyle simply as the costume design, because the costume designer will usually be the one to make the decisions for all three. We will now look at three elements of costume design separately. We will begin with the costumes themselves. The costume design helps to tell a movie's story. The setting and style of a film generally governs the costume design. They suggest specific character traits such as social station, self-image, the image that the character is trying to project for the world, state of mind, overall situation, and so on. Color can be incredibly important in creating meaning through the costume design. Always pay attention to how color is used in costume design. American Beauty uses red in costumes to highlight changes in character, climactic moments, and important shifts in the narrative. We will now look at the importance of costume design in Edward Scissorhands. Edward's outsider status and otherness is emphasized by his costume and makeup. Peg, the Avon lady, dresses primarily to match the pastel colors of the town's houses to show her social conformity. Another housewife is always dressed in low-cut outfits that suggest her sexual prowess. Notice how in each of these statements of the costumes, my opinion is not what I'm stating. I am focusing on what I see and what it means, or what it tells me about the characters or the story. Sometimes characters' costumes design will go against their nature. In To Die For, Nicole Kidman wears pastel outfits that make her seem cute and cuddly, but she is, in fact, a scheming backstabber who will do anything to get ahead. The filmmaker made this choice for her because her costume represents her vision of herself. The costumes are telling us something very important about her character. She does not see herself as she actually is. With makeup, although many directors favor makeup that is as natural as possible, we tend to notice makeup design when it helps create an unusual or fantastic character. Here are a few questions to ask yourself when analyzing a costume design. What do the costumes, makeup, and hairstyle say about the characters? What do they say about the story? Did the filmmaker make choices that go against the character's nature? What does this tell us? What purpose do they serve? Do they set the mood? Do they establish a time and place? Do they communicate character traits? Is this consistent throughout, or does it depend on the particular scene? How do they contribute to the overall experience of watching the movie? Let's finish up this lesson by watching a short video on production design.
As defined by the fine folks at the dictionary, production design is the overall look of a film that illustrates the setting and visual style of the story. It includes the design of the sets, location choices, costumes, and the choice and supervision of props. But why is this important? Well, to be specific, shallow depth of field ain't gonna matter much if all you're shooting in front of is a white wall. So many low-budget shorts feature people talking in boring-looking rooms, and let me tell you, that's just not cinematic. Next time you're watching a Hollywood film, pay attention to all the stuff that's happening in the background of the frame. Although it's not the center of attention, production design makes things interesting to look at, and oftentimes it can tell us more about the characters and their personalities. I mean, let's take a quick look at this screenshot from one of my favorite films of all time, Jurassic Park. In just one shot, we know everything we need to know about Dennis Nedry's character. He's a slob, he's brilliant, I mean, look at all that fancy code on the screens behind him. More importantly, it's evident he just doesn't care about his work environment, as is shown by his general disorganization. For more examples, Wes Anderson films are especially known for their unique production design, building entire worlds just through the use of well-constructed sets and awesome prop selection. Danny Boyle is another mainstream director who is known for his production design, often choosing incredibly unique locations to fill out his films. But what about the world of shorts? Well, the master of production design when it comes to shorts is filmmaker Jamie Travis. Like Wes Anderson, Travis has a precise eye for visual detail that is uncanny. To see what I mean, just watch The Saddest Boy in the World, one of 3 films in Travis's Sad Children trilogy. Being that it's so pronounced, the production design actually becomes a character in Travis's films. It's impossible not to notice, and thus the films are given this dollhouse-like feel, something that is both real and fake at the same time. But how about us low-budget folks? Well, to you I say, check out the work of Connor and Tyler Burton of Brudder Films. Tyler and Connor have meticulously designed their shorts visually, choosing specific props and colors to really give their shorts a great old-fashioned comedic tone. And check out Fran's Daughter from director Eric F. Martin, a film that played South by Southwest in 2011. This is a drama that takes place in one cramped location and is entirely dependent on dialogue, but Martin amps up his visuals in other interesting ways by perfectly utilizing production design. The furniture is well chosen, to be sure, but beyond that, check out the wallpaper. It's subtle enough to not be distracting, but it really cultivates a strong visual world.
We have just learned about the elements of design of a film. In the next lesson, we will look at composition. Composition is the organization, distribution, balance, and general relationship of actors and objects, as well as of light, shade, line, and color within the space or frame of each shot. In both of these shots, the composition says a great deal. Having Jennifer Lopez on the ground and him on the steps above her tells us something about the relationship. They are not on an even playing field. In both of these images, he is in the center. He is the focus of both shots. This tells us he is in control of what happens. In the first shot, he is between the 2 red pillars and between his giant wings in the center of the frame. In the second, he is also in the center of the frame. The line down the center of the wall points right at him. Again, he is in control of what happens. He is the focus. It also lets us know about his character, that he is incredibly powerful right now. Notice that what I'm talking about is the arrangement of the objects and their relationship to each other. This is what we look at when we look at composition. The 2 aspects of composition that filmmakers must visualize and plan for each shot are framing and kinesis. Framing is what we see on the screen. Kinesis is what moves on the screen. Composition is important because it helps us to ensure the aesthetic unity and harmony of the movie, as well as guide our looking. How we read the image and its component parts, and particularly how we interpret the characters' physical, emotional, and psychological relationship to one another. We will now look at framing, what we see on the screen. The frame is the border between what the filmmaker wants us to see and everything else. Because the frame is always moving, it is an important and dynamic visual element. Framing implies point of view, or POV, whose eyes the camera is looking through. Subjective POV, or first-person POV, is the point of view from a single character. It's almost as if one of the characters was holding a camera and were watching it from their perspective. Omniscient POV, or third-person POV, is a point of view from no one in particular. It is not taking the point of view of any characters in the film. It's almost as if there's an invisible presence there, recording the event. Because the frame is dynamic, it often makes us aware of the off-screen space outside the frame, as well as the on-screen space inside it. As the frame moves, it presents on the screen details that were previously off-screen. Both spaces are equally important to the composition and to the viewer's experience of it. We will now discuss two different types of frames: closed frame and open frame. A closed frame is a frame that depicts a world where characters are limited by powers outside themselves, such as fate, social, educational, and economic background, repressive government, etc. In the Kurosawa film Ikuru from 1952, the main character here is trapped not only by his cancer diagnosis, but also by his failures and outside pressures. This frame shows his entrapment by being surrounded by rain, people, dark colors, and umbrellas. In this frame, from the same film, the same concepts are reinforced, but this time he is surrounded by books and a tight space. In North by Northwest, the main character is trapped, even though he is in a wide, open, vast space. Wherever he goes, the plane will get him. Directors choose this frame when their stories concern characters who are controlled by outside forces and do not have the freedom to come and go as they wish. An open frame is a frame that depicts a world where characters can move freely. At the end of Ikuru, when the main character achieves his main life's goal, the frames change to open, revealing his newfound freedom. He is finally free to do what he wants. In the final scene of Castaway, Tom Hanks finds himself with unlimited choices as the expansive plane surrounds him. So how do you recognize good framing? A good way to remember is the rule of thirds. The main points of focus are on the lines, with the most important parts being at the intersection of the lines. Triangular composition occurs when the placement of the subjects form the shape of a triangle, sometimes to create depth, other times to break up the image for variety in spacing and position, and often to create a connection or relationship between the different subjects. Center frame composition is when the subjects are in the center. Pretty self-explanatory. We will later discuss in more detail the cinematography of both Stanley Kubrick and Wes Anderson, both of whom use central frame composition in very different ways. Let's look at kinesis, what moves on the screen. We perceive movement when we see it, the movement of objects and characters within the frame, or the apparent movement of the frame itself. Of course, all movies move, but some move more than others, and differently. The kinetic quality of many movies is determined by their genre. Action, cartoons, and comedies tend to include more and faster movement than do love stories or biographical films. So which is better, more or less movement? It depends on the relationship with the narrative and the mise en scene. Movement of objects and characters within the frame. Objects can move across the frame in a horizontal, diagonal, vertical, or circular pattern, from foreground to background, and from on-screen to off-screen. Movement shows not only where a character is moving to, but how and sometimes why. In analysis, pay close attention to how and why objects move and what they tell you about the story. Decisions, not chance. The mise en scene is the product of very detailed planning. Everything in a shot is chosen. Nothing in a good film is left to chance. Mise en scene happens because directors and their creative colleagues have envisioned it. It is a way for directors to communicate with their audience through more than just the story. They can communicate visually and creatively. For these reasons, it is incredibly important that you know how to analyze the look and the feel of the film. Some of the elements that we talked about today, we will review and discuss a bit differently when we talk about cinematography in our next lesson. This concludes our lesson on mise-en-scene, which is separated into design and composition. Make sure that you review anything that seems confusing and that you took good notes. Have a good day.